What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, Conscious Crew? It is your favorite breakdown commentator, Consciouztv. Welcome to another riveting episode. We definitely have some things to get into. Yes, the titties are out. Oh, me God. I decided to bless y'all with some Thanksgiving Day turkey. Put all this meat on display for y'all. Okay. Hope you guys are having a wonderful hump day. We are one day before another pagan holiday. I am not a holiday person. I have never really been a holiday person. I literally just got into celebrating my damn birthday. And that's only because I'm getting ancient. But I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday, a wonderful Thanksgiving. I will be with my family, the people that love me, and the people who I love. And I hope you guys also get to see your family, and you get to see everybody coming from all across the states and all across the world and everything else. And that you just have a great time breaking bread tomorrow and counting your blessings, because life is nuts and people are leaving this earth for one reason or another. So live in the present moment, love very hard, count your days, know that you're here temporarily, and allow that to motivate you to do whatever the hell it is that you have on that bucket list to do, okay? Forgive the goddamn Pepsi, okay? What's going on, Juju? Hey, Tanya. What's going on, Ray? Hey, Lady Gemini. Hey, Clancy. Hey, Tareen. What's going on? Hey, Auntie Trisha. Hey, Yvette. What's going on, Ray? What's going on, everybody? Let me make sure I speak. Hey, Blessed, Booked, and Busy. What's going on, Mom Goody? Hey, Sugar. What's going on? Okay. So you guys already know what we're here to get into. This documentary, I would almost be speechless. This documentary was really wild. I have quite a few comments to make. I have thought about the way that I want to speak about this documentary, because I have a great deal of respect and love for the Reid family. I almost feel bad that they were so transparent in this documentary, because it's going to make the feedback very honest, which is the only reason why I feel comfortable giving my honest observations, because there was a lot of honesty that was expressed throughout this documentary. And if you guys haven't seen From Misfit to Mystic, a Larry Reid story, you definitely have to check it out. It is on his Facebook and his YouTube. And I'm actually going to give commentary using the first 20 minutes of the documentary. I hope you don't mind, Dr. Larry D. Reid. Don't copyright strike a bitch, okay? Because there are some things that are definitely just hands down notable, and that we just have to get into and we have to talk about. So yes, it's going to be a heavy commentary, a very serious commentary. I will drop the link in case anybody wants to come up and also give their perspective on this documentary. You guys will be more than welcome to hit the link. Trigger warning as well. So this documentary is centered around a lot of sexual abuse, incest, a lot of religiosity, a lot of identity issues. It was very, very, very heavy. Very, very heavy. So as we prep to get into this dialogue, you guys give me a thumbs up, because that helps with the algorithm. If you're new here, definitely subscribe. You're not going to want to miss anything happening on this platform, okay? Everybody should have their notification bell set to all. And with that being said, let's go ahead and run our intro, and then we will be back for tonight's commentary. Okay.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on, So Debonair? You guys, you guys make sure that you head over and also check out So Debonair. He is another content creator and a friend. Go way back in the day, baby. Okay, he does a lot of celebrity commentary. He does a lot of show reviews, etc. Great content creator. So make sure that you guys check out So Debonair right here on YouTube. What's going on, guy? So this documentary, right? So this documentary was centered around our secular man of God's life, okay? It goes way back to him in the womb, gives an epic origin story. And I'm going to be honest, I really underestimated the emotional impact that this documentary would have on me. I moderated during the premiere of this documentary, and I was relieved that it wasn't just me who was so triggered up. Literally, part one of this documentary, which was only an hour, zapped the living life out of me. I was going to actually go live the night that it premiered, and I was so depressed. I was so heavy-spirited. I was so troubled within my loins that I ended up just staying up all night and just end up going to bed. I just literally laid in bed and just thought my way into sleep. And when I got the next morning, I realized why I was so triggered up by this documentary. And it was because Larry's story is literally every mystic's story. He told every mystic's life. A life of individuality, a life of uniqueness. That uniqueness and individuality oftentimes is surrounded by a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of social rejection, particularly around family and peer groups. It just literally encompassed every bit of one's humanity, and that humanity going up against damn near every obstacle and social construct that could exist. Every social norm, every social expectation, everything around womanhood, manhood, religion, and God. I mean, it was a confrontation, a total confrontation of one's humanity in a world that's very defensive and rejective of all of those unique intersections. So I saw myself, and I saw so many other mystics and unique people's stories encompassed in this. And I want to say off the back that Larry Reid is lucky to be alive today. Matter of fact, I'm going to take it one step further. All of us who made it through our adversity, all of us who made it through our diversities in life, because you do not get to choose the hand that you're dealt, at least not consciously. And there's only two groups of people that incarnate into this world and into human form and take on a body and flesh and blood. And those are the survivors and those who the life experience is going to get the best of. If you survived the hand that you were dealt, whether that was being a foster child, whether that was being born in poverty, whether that was being born to abusive parents, addictive parents, broken households, whether that was being born uniquely made, maybe that's a handicap, a deformity. If you had cards that didn't allow you to fit within the beauty standards and a lot of the standards that society hold together that put you kind of on the outskirts and in the misfit category, whatever your adversity was, if you survived that shit and somehow found a way to love yourself, become whole, and live a life of joy and happiness and peace and purpose and have love in your heart despite all of the loss, all of the damage that was done to you throughout your evolution as a spirit within a body, amen to you. Because based upon everything that happened to Larry and so many of his relatives, sisters, and all, he should have technically been transformed for the worse. But because of God's grace and mercy and Larry yielding to a deeper calling in his life, despite all of the stop signs, between the trinity of that, this man persevered. And so I want to celebrate him and give him his roses and thank God for him being here and being who he is. There's a lot of powerful things I took away from this documentary that I'll get into toward the end of my commentary. I also just want to thank Reid and the family for being epically transparent and honest. I'm going to tell you just how impacted I was by the authenticity and the honesty of this documentary at the end. Everything I want to say here tonight is said in love and are just observations. And we're just going to get right into it. I'm a little bit scatterbrained. We're going to watch. I'm going to talk through at least the first 20 minutes of this if you guys have not seen it. And I'm going to give my commentary accordingly. So let me share my screen real quick. And once again, if you haven't seen this, please go to Larry Reid Live's Facebook or YouTube page where you can see the entire documentary. This is something that is worth watching, not only alone. Share this to your friends, your family, every Black melanated person you know. This is a conversation that we need to have as Black and brown folk. Period. Okay? Hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna play this. If you guys can hear it, please press 1 if you can hear the audio, okay?
So I'm sitting at my grandma's house. That's the family home down in Eureka, North Carolina.
Where are we?
In the middle of nowhere. In walks his mom. We call her Aunt Punch. Her name is Ethelene Reid. She comes in with this baby, right? And it's a boy. She lays Larry down. And when the covers come back, there lies this beautiful creation of God. with this gigantic head. This dude's head, I was like, we sure do have ourselves a thinker.
Why? Why?
Hi guys. Today
Why?
I'm going to show you some of our most popular.
Why Auntie Boo got to do the most, okay? Oh my God, you gotta love Auntie, honey.
We are about what? You said an hour, about 18 miles from Goldsboro, North Carolina, about 3 miles from Stantonsburg, and probably around about 7 or 8 miles from Pikeville. So we're sitting right in the middle of many bigger cities, I call it.
Seems like you all have a pretty big family. Can you tell us about like the family reunion?
Like the greatest ever. Oh, let's see. Family reunion is spread across 3 yards that probably have an acre and a half each, probably more.
So what we're learning here so far is that Larry was born in Eureka, North Carolina, which was very small. The family is very tight-knit. Everybody basically lived within 3 feet of one another on the same land, had a family church, etc. Keep that in mind, because there's something that's going to happen in this documentary that is kind of going to make something that he says really epic. It's true, but it's like a devastating truth. It's a very tough truth to swallow, because not all truth is rosy, not all truth is virtuous, not all truth is romantic. Some truths are hard to swallow, but they're truth, and it's powerful nonetheless. So keep in mind, raised in a very small country part of North Carolina, everybody raised kind of on top of one another.
And Friday night is the fish fry. That's what we call it. Fresh fish fried in the grease. I almost couldn't say it. And that lasts from like 6 until. We have a big tent that stretches across 2 yards. In that tent, there's microphones set up. Looks like this production place here. Each family gets up and sings, and that goes on for hours. I don't know when we stop. It's the best.
An official holiday in the town of Eureka.
My family's really big on church, and religion, things like that. Now, First Baptist Eureka was the church that all the family, cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody. So pretty much if you went to the home church, Eureka, pretty much you see everybody you know. So, yeah.
In our home church, most of the praisers were women. I don't know what was wrong with the relationship with the men and their God, but the women went all the way.
We was singing at a revival. And when we got through singing, the preacher looked around and said, y'all don't sound like no Baptists or missionary Baptists. Y'all gotta be holiness or Pentecostal. And we at the same time said, we are holy.
So I want you guys to keep this in mind as well. Did you guys hear what Auntie just said? She said that she don't know what the hell is wrong with the men of the family, but most of the women are the worshipers. They are the saved ones in the family. They make up the majority. I'm gonna stop this right here because there's something that I think is worth noting, and then we'll pull the documentary back up. Let me share my screen here. I'm about to show you guys something that I think is very fascinating. Here it is. See if I can pull this up for you guys. Okay, so here it is. You guys see, this is the gender distribution of religious groups in the United States from 2017 by Faith Tradition. What you guys will see here is that every major world religion is practically more women involved than men. Okay, whether it's Hindu, Muslim, unaffiliated, Orthodox Christian, Buddhist, Mormon, Jewish, Hispanic, Protestant, Catholic, etc., that women make up the majority in these cases, aside from Hindu and Islam. But women have men beat like astronomically for the most part. And I find it interesting that men make up the majority of Muslims. I'm not surprised because the Islamic faith is very, very patriarchal and very toxic, and it's very sexist, and so I can see why women wouldn't necessarily be attracted in the droves to the Islamic faith. Okay, but there's a reason why religion and spirituality appeal more so to women than to men. And for me, my personal belief, okay, and I wrote down my notes here, is that religious and spiritual practitioners make up more women than men across most ethnic groups and the majority of religious groups because of one reason and one reason only. God itself is feminine. That's why religion and spirituality appeal more so to women collectively and generally speaking than it does to men. Okay, see, God creates in the masculine, but God bees in the feminine principle. If you even go back to Yeshua and Jesus, a man who proclaimed to be one with the Father and to do as he saw the Father do in heaven while he was male, he actually taught very feminine principles like empathy, compassion, intuition, love, selflessness, givingness. All these things are connected to the divine feminine. So I'm not personally surprised that women make up the majority of the population of religious participants and spiritual participants. So I just wanted to note that. Okay, so let's get back to the documentary. Okay. Stop the screen. Let me share, baby. Let's share. All right, let's go. Let me move me out of the way.
When you're growing up in the South and you're in a predominantly white neighborhood, it's a one-stoplight town from Pikeville, North Carolina. You live in a trailer, and it's not a nice trailer. It's a trailer with holes in the floor.
There's a place that was in by the sink. Underneath the sink, we had a hole there. It was rotten, basically.
Larry, my mom, my Aunt Cretia, and my Uncle Brad, and then all four of my mom's kids. We were all together with my grandma. We're just a big crazy, crazy ball of people. Different personalities, big personalities. We had all every insect there was to have in our town was there. It was a little embarrassing, but we had to make do with what we had.
Very, very, very humble beginnings, honey. Roaches, rats, and trailers. Push through, Reeds. Push through.
I do not know to this day how I missed that step. I fell from the top of the step to the bottom. I slipped, and I just knew right then that was it. But he survived it.
Now, child, even Larry's birth was miraculous, because Mama Reid had done took a Beyonce tumble down the stairs, baby, and had done fell from the top to the literal bottom, and yet did not miscarry, baby. Okay, that's something that only the Holy Ghost can do. Okay, when you're saved and sanctified like that, okay, that's the type of protection over you. Now, the only issue is the side effect from the fall was that big ass head, okay, that Aunt Boo was talking about, okay, that Larry had a permanent swell on his head he had to grow into, that came from Mama Reed's tumble, baby, okay? Let's keep on listening here.
Wow, baby.
But he was so big, and that head was just...
Larry has had the same size head since he was three.
But this little body.
So the 6 foot tall grown man that you see today, imagine that same head, almost that same face.
He grew into his head. Normally it's the other way around, but Larry grew into his head. He had a big head, but he was cute.
And that big grin when he gets old is always been there.
I called the church baby boy when he was growing up. Most of what I remember in his earlier years was when Mama would tell how Larry would have church all day long. You know, his mother was a shouter, she was a praiser. So he would have church all day long. He'd sing his song, and then he would clap his hands, and then after a while he'll start speaking in tongues and he'll fall out. And that's what we did in Eureka.
He's always been fascinated with praise and church, from what I can see. So when we would get home, Larry...
Before Aunt Boo and then continue the commentary, I just want to say that this is also not uncommon for young mystics. A love for music, a love for spirituality, even if that's in the form of church or religion, etc. A certain sense of individuality that is going to be translated in a very controlling environment as rebellious. Really, it's just a strong sense of self. Introvertedness and extrovertedness at times also are like symptoms of mysticism. I have music symbols tattooed on my arm because music was something that really resonated with me, even as a young mystic as well, growing up. It was very therapeutic. And I think it was because for mystics in particularly, music is purely vibrational. And because your spirit, man, and your consciousness is purely vibrational, there's almost a subconscious sense of home when you experience music, because unlike a lot of other people, you don't just hear music as a mystic, you experience music. You experience its very life. It's almost equivalent to actually invoking the Holy Spirit itself. Like I recall times very young, before I even knew and had concepts around God, that when I would hear music, I would experience something very like electrified, something from like the inside out. It was very consuming and overwhelming, but in this dopamine orgasmic type of a way, that that music would almost become me. And so hearing about how Larry almost immediately had this love for worship, had this love for music and song and singing, not surprised. Those are typical mystical attributes, okay?
Larry he would wrap stuff around him like he had on a dress. He would put something on his head like he had on a prayer cap. And he would put on his mom's heels, you know, and he would go all the way in hard in praise.
He would throw on his mom's prayer cap. He would have her purse. He would have her heels. I mean, he would have on everything. And just shout. And just speaking in tongues and yelling. I said, what is he doing?
Larry was fascinated, and he was influenced by the same strong women in our family. And that's where I think that all that came from. See, a lot of times when you have male that's effeminate, people think for whatever reason, I'm going to beat it out of them, I'm going to throw them football, but I don't think that was it. A lot of people had the thought, what's wrong with this boy? But nobody would ever really say anything.
Growing up, my mom, she would always fuss at him and be like, you just acting like you gay, you acting this. But my mom had no idea what he was going through. And she was like, I don't like you acting like this. And sometimes he wasn't even acting like he was gay. He was just having fun and trying to play with me because I didn't have a younger sister. Like, after all that stuff happened, all he'd been through, and then for everybody to treat him different because of what he'd been through, I'm like, come on, like, he'd been through a lot. Give him a little leeway to get his anger out.
So that is very that is very interesting to me, you guys. I think that this is something, hey Miss Bynum, this is something really worth noting. We really have to divorce this idea that femininity is synonymous with sexuality, because it's not. It's no more synonymous with men's sexuality than masculinity is synonymous with women's sexuality. There's a lot of tom girls, a lot of girls who are into sports, into football, into a lot of athletics and what you would call boy men's activity, roughhousing, etc., who are not queer, who are not bisexual or lesbian. And I always say this on my channel, but one of the issues living in the West is that we attribute two polarities to genitalia. We attribute it to sex, and we really shouldn't. And it's actually healthy for women to be in touch with their masculinity and for men to be in touch with their femininity. One of the issues with saying that, especially talking to the Black community and talking to Black men, is that when Black men hear be in touch with your femininity, they imagine Consciouztv. They imagine hair, nails. They imagine Lil Nas X, thigh-high boots. That's not what is meant by, as a man, be in touch with your femininity. Now, aesthetics, yes, can be a expression and personification, a creative expression of your divine masculine or your divine feminine. But what we mean by that is more in the metaphysical sense of a femininity, that it's important for men to be in touch with their heart chakra, to be in touch with their sensitivities and affections and with their vulnerabilities. When we make men divorce their hearts, this is what makes them very contentious and oftentimes egoic when it comes to relationships. And then men adopt this very mathematical, logical way of navigating life, which is only one aspect of yourself that you're using to navigate life with. You need the feminine aspect of yourself to navigate life as well, because life is not all math and 1, 2, 3 and calculation. It's also feeling, it's being, it's presence. And your emotional body is a lot like your ability to taste. Your emotions allow you to feel what you are creating. It allows you to feel what you're doing. And those feelings are significant because those feelings take us back and remind us of all that is good and all that is necessary and all that is worth living life for when those times get hard. And I have a feeling that living in a time frame where masculinity for Black men is becoming more thin and it's becoming more toxic, that this is what's really attributing and leading to suicide for Black men to be at 3 times the rate that it is. Black men are not able to survive this brand of masculinity. Is showing up in domestic violence between them and Black women, which is also on the rise. Is showing up in addiction. Is showing up in gang culture. Is showing up in hypersexuality and promiscuity. Black men's souls are collapsing, especially young Black male youth. Consciousness is collapsing under this brand of masculinity. And so, you know, when we see a femininity on a young boy, our first assumption should not be that he's queer, even though that may be the case as well, and that's also fine. But we need to engage that femininity and see it more so as a creative outlet, and it being a receipt that that young boy is in touch with his authentic and genuine self. And women are going to appreciate this later on in life. Other human beings in general are going to appreciate this in life. If you're raising Black men to also be strong, which we should be raising women to be strong as well, but we're raising them to be emotionally available, not only to their own brothers, but also to women, and generally speaking, because we're living in a world that's pretty dominated by men, and the world is going to hell for it. Okay, capitalism is running amok. The government is running amok. All of these are patriarchal led constructs and creations, and the world is devastated by a world that's purely ran by men. The masculine principle was never meant to do this alone. Neither was the feminine principle either. They were meant to harmonize from the beginning. Okay, this is why your scriptures say that when male and female marry, they become one in spirit. Masculine and feminine principle were meant to balance one another. There is no table men should be at that is without the feminine principle. There is no feminine table that should be had without the presence of the masculine, especially when they're whole, because you need both to complete the picture. You need the incave, the concave. You need that dynamic to establish order and structure. So, being raised in the Deep South, under religiosity, Larry is experiencing his divine feminine. Is showing up in the closest thing he can contextualize it to, which is women. So he's emulating his mom. He's parading around, having fun in her garbs, etc. And this is being rejected by religion, which also is a patriarchal construct as well. It's very interesting. Even how women, Black women, participate in toxic masculinity as well, because we've all been conditioned to be toxic in that way, which is why we have to unlearn all of these things.
My family secrets, it's a lot going on. I don't know where you want me to begin. You know, it can go from lies to incest, molestation, rape, fighting, gossiping, just everything.
What was it like for me and what was like for him? I can't say what was like for him. I know what he's told me was it like for him, but I can't say what was like for Larry. I can say what it was like for me. It changed my life. It literally changed my view of self. It changed everything.
Wow.
My view of honesty and trust. My view of men. My view of family. It changed me for the worse.
I am not aware. I've only heard.
So here it is. We just heard Larry's sister, I believe his oldest sister, talk about the way she was impacted by the sexual abuse that she endured. This is why earlier on I said what I said about Larry being a miracle child, because the things that happened to him were and could have easily transformed him for the worst. So here it is. We have someone like Larry who has confronted all of those things and self-actualized all of those things and transmuted that ish into fertilizer. And then on a polar opposite scale, here it is. We have his sister who is scarred and scorned by her abuse, and this has changed the way that she shows up in her body. It's shaped the way that she perceives humanity, family. All of her boundaries were violated. All of her expectations out of her family and people were completely disrupted by this violation, and her soul has been fractured and almost in a suspended animation state since that abuse. And this happens to a lot of abuse victims. There are a lot of things that can create massive ego deaths. One of those things can be sexual abuse. It can be a very severe injury to the body that results maybe in some deformity or a loss of a limb. It could be a miscarriage. It could be a divorce. It could be the loss of a child. It could be the loss of a relationship, a divorce. Many things can create a fracture and a soul scar. And when that happens, literally, what mystics call it is the dark night of the soul. And this is when the soul is the darkest. This is when there's no dawn in your being. When a dark night of the soul happens, you literally are experiencing what Christ experienced on the cross when Christ called out to his higher self and said, "Why have you forsaken me?" It is a profound abandonment and disruption of your fantasy of life. Ego deaths disrupt your fantasy. This idea that the world is trusting, this idea that you are loved, this idea, and then something happens that interrupts all of that and interrupts it in a profound way. This can leave you almost in a state of unrecovery. And this fracture is so devastating and injurious that some people have went as far as to take their own life as a result of that anguish and or that emptiness. As a result of Larry's sister sharing this and her opening up about this, I hope that if she isn't already in some type of spiritual counseling or some type of secular counsel, that her family is galvanizing around her and loving on her and hugging on her and yielding their shoulders for her to be supported by, and that they are aiding and abetting her in her evolution, because she won't be able to transmute something that devastating without the support of her community. And her sharing this to the world is, on a subconscious level, a signal that she wants to be heard, she wants to be protected, and she needs to be deeply supported. Let's continue to listen.
Heard what he's told. So, I'm from Maryland. So I didn't grow up down here like Tennille them did. So I would come down on special occasions, Christmas, Thanksgiving, they had to sing. So I don't necessarily know what happened with that at all.
So as far as his, and I'll use the same terms he uses when he reports, the allegations of molestation. Although we are both from North Carolina, and like Karen said, she came down on special occasions, but I did not grow up down there with them. So it could have been people from the community, extended family members. I myself never witnessed anything like that on my own towards Larry. But that's not to dismiss anything that he has ever said.
I feel like everybody, and this sounds horrible, but I feel like everyone in my family, in some form or way, has been fondled or molested or raped in some form or fashion. I think it's because they do not want to hold people accountable who should have been held accountable and brought to the light. Instead of covering up things, nothing is healed with putting a band-aid on it without cleaning it first and getting that grit out. And I feel like there's a lot of dirt that needs to be told.
That was very, very, very powerful of Larry's niece to say. There is so much of that type of abuse, ancestral and just sexual assault in general, that goes on in Black families that gets swept under the rugs. And this adds even more devastating injury to a lot of people who have been abused, especially within a family system, because there's so much shame and almost confusion around how to deal with a situation like that when it's happened by people that you love. And then you deny it and don't address it. What ends up happening is that every Thanksgiving, 4th of July, and Christmas, the family seats the perpetrator right across from their victim and make them break bread together as if nothing ever happened. And that level of sunken placeness is almost unfathomable. And when we really think about how devastating secrecy really is and how it impacts individuals, especially within family structures, and the suffering in silence, this has happened in my own family. I have relatives who have been abused by another relative, and that abuse has never been spoken for, spoken to. And I heard about these stories and these accounts from yay high, and I've watched those people to this day sit across from the people that they allege abused them without any confrontation, without any accountability. And while everybody in the room knows, everybody operates in denial. And I've never been sexually assaulted or abused, so I can only imagine what it feels like. I can only imagine that there's a growing sense of resentment that one holds toward mom, dad, the family, whoever knows. And nobody has the heart to protect you. Nobody has the heart to drag that thing from out the closet, from under the rug. Nobody has the heart to do it. And as his niece said, one of the biggest things that contribute to that is not only it's fear. Fear of, once again, destroying the fantasy of the ego. If you say that so-and-so molested you, it's possible that you lose their relationship to your aunts and uncle because it was their child that abused you. If you say that uncle molested you, you risk devastating the marriage between your aunt and your uncle as a result. You risk upsetting your parents. There is a reality of a crumbling effect. And oftentimes the anger doesn't really so much get projected onto the accused. It gets projected onto the one telling the truth. Because everybody's fantasy collapses. It's fucking insane. And I'm gonna tell you, I was triggered up by this because I oftentimes have thought, whose place is it? Whose place is it to snatch that shit from under the rug? Do you leave it to the victim to do it? Is it their call to make? Or do you jump in as the person who knows it and snatch it up and uproot it? I really want to know. Whose place is it? Because now you got everybody who knows about what has happened, traumatized by the secrecy. Now you got everybody conflicted within themselves because something in them may want to go out and protect by addressing the situation. But you also don't want to offend the person whose truth it is. Because if you say something and jump ahead of them, you risk putting them in a situation that they don't have the emotional capacity to deal with at that time, and damn sure don't have the capacity to deal with the fallout. Because something like this and these type of truths have to be preparated for. And the less they're preparated for, the more devastating the impact of those truths are going to be. And there is also no perfect delivery. There is no real perfect way to deal with something like this other than to deal with it. But it is deeply complicated, and that shit is heart-wrenching. Mom Goody said, I was literally told to get over it. I did. I was a full adult before I disclosed to my mother. I haven't shared with my family since. Somebody in my family told their parent, and that parent said, what do you want me to do about it now? Because the parent is elderly at this point, and the person in my family who told their parent is an adult who now has grown children themselves. And I couldn't believe that that was the response. I couldn't believe, Mom Goody, that that was the response. Is you hear your child at any age, whether it's 13 or 33, comes to you and tells you that they've been violated by so and so and so. And what happens immediately is you turn your heart off and your defense is on. And treats this like a circumstance where someone is telling you that they ran out of gas or they don't have the last $50 to put on a light bill. What do you want me to do about it now? I feel sorry for our people because we have generationally practiced this silence and this shame living for so long that we have no real tools around how in the hell you deal with this as a victim yourself, or how those who know also what has happened and is watching things be undealt with, how they are to handle and navigate that level of secrecy. It's a bizarre thing. It was her way of coping, and I only got the insight from therapy. And to the parents, to the people who you're sharing this with, I can imagine it's a coping mechanism. It's a defensive mechanism. Because that level of truth is heartbreaking, infuriating, especially when it comes to the parents. Because a parent is going to deal with themselves first when they hear something like this. They're going to deal with, I know damn well I didn't drop the ball on my job and didn't defend this. There's no way. There's no way. So they're going to immediately go into saving themselves, because they're going to immediately blame themselves for what has happened. And sometimes it is the parent's fault. Sometimes the parent was unconscious as hell. Sometimes the parent was off with every other priority in life, running after men, aka too much in survival mode, working all the time to put food on the table and to keep the lights on. So a lot of shit just went overlooked. A lot of dynamics create unconscious parenting. And this is where the fathering and the mothering separates themselves from the parents. I always make a distinction that there's a difference between mothering and parenting. Fathering and parenting. Parenting is flat. Roof, clothes, and raise you till you become an adult. Mothering and fathering encompasses not only providing the fundamentals, but it's about providing the nuance of also understanding your child, bonding with your child, and a willingness to go on the journey of life with your child. Open to the possibilities and having a curiosity around who your child is. Not just raising them as an object, like you're watering a plant, but to see them as God's thought being blossomed through the power of love and allowance and acceptance. All things that make us grow up and have a very healthy sense of self. And it's mind-boggling, because I'm not gonna stay on this for too long, but it was watching this, because oftentimes when we have this stuff going on in our own families, we eventually numb ourselves to it. We become desensitized. The dysfunction becomes normalized. But hearing and seeing another family actually say these things and confront these things things and be honest about these things. Just really makes you see how fucked up all of this is. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
Well, I can only speak from my point of view because I don't really know what it's like. Because when you get molested, you don't really tell everybody everything. But he became more angry after that, and we went through it together. People don't understand the relationship I have with my brother. He was almost like a father and a protector because we went through this situation in life together. And it was traumatizing. I was touched, I was fondled, but he took a lot from me because when people would try to touch me, whatever, he would be like, do whatever you do to me, don't touch my sister.
I said, I can't talk about it because he never told me nothing like that. I never knew nothing about.
I wanna this is another powerful moment that didn't go unrecognized to me when the younger sister said that Larry would pretty much offer himself up as a living sacrifice in place of their abuser not abusing her. Another mystical sign and symptom and attribute. But also, when she said that, I realized that this is exactly why God trusts Larry with the following that he has. Because, like a true shepherd, he protects. He protects. This is why God has allowed hundreds of thousands of people to flock to him and to be under his guidance and tutelage, because he's trustworthy. He's trustworthy. And he's willing to give himself up for the sake of solidarity and safety for someone other than himself. That is Christ personified. Anytime that you operate in that level of selflessness, anytime you've given up your last, anytime you've inconvenienced yourself for someone else, anytime you've given unto someone else and took less in return, you've literally operated in the personification of Christ's consciousness. This is why the scriptures say that what greater love is it than a man laying down his own life? That is Christ.
About him being molested till he was grown and gone. I knew nothing about it.
Same here. I can't tell the truth because it would destroy families, churches, leaders. So I can't do that. I carry that every day of my life. And some days are harder than others.
The reason why I think molestation is a taboo within my family, the Reid family, I think it's because it's happened. It has happened, and everybody positioned on this. Shh, don't say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, just sweep it under the rug, you know, we'll figure out later on. I felt like it was just cover up, you know, because these were family members that other family members looked up to. So it's kind of like, okay, you say this, it's going to mess up how everybody viewed this person. He wasn't the only one that got, you know, molested within my family, you know, immediate family too.
Some history that you learn you can't change. And when you can't change something, you know, why tear up family and churches, you know, over something that doesn't happen, that you ain't nothing you can do about it. I'm just glad I didn't know it. The Lord must knew it was best for me not to know.
Nah, I'm gonna clap back on that, Papa Reid. You can't change some history, but the issue with not dealing with history is because you leave what appears to be an isolated incident unchecked that actually is a pattern of perpetual abuse by that person. And because that's the ideology of Papa Reid, Larry's abuser also ended up being his sister's abuser. It is not better to not know, because in not knowing is what led to one's inability to not protect and provide proper justice to such a manifestation. Papa Reid is a perfect example of, you know, and I wasn't upset at Papa Reid. It just made me understand what I was speaking to earlier. That Black people, we are unprepared. We're so unprepared generationally for something like this, that we feel it's easier to just do nothing and to deny and to let it go and to forget it and to let it be what it is and give it to God and move forward. And that's out of us recognizing that we don't know what to do. Doing anything but nothing would have been the right thing to do. There is no right way there's no wrong way to handle something like this. If I would be able to say there's a wrong way, nothing would be the wrong way. Nothing. And to the sister's point, that she don't want to collapse her family structure because of who did this to her. I'm going to say, baby, tell the truth and shame the damn devil. It is not your job. Neither do you have, and this goes out to all victims of abuse. It's not your job to protect your abuser. It's not. It's not your job to be concerned about how the family's going to feel about you, about what's going to happen. It's not your job to. I also want to say that neither is one's closure wrapped up in the persecution of your abuser. Because a lot of times when we are victimized in whatever way we're victimized, we oftentimes think that punishment will liberate us. That if we could see this person punished, and a lot of abusers will tell you that despite their abuser ended up dead or in prison, that their journey of healing did not conclude itself at the point that that person died or at the point that that person was arrested. Because what we don't really want to also accept about betrayal and violation is that it's only a mess that we ourselves can clean up. That person's apology can't clear it. That person's acknowledgement can't clear it. It can make it easier. It can soothe it over. But ultimately, we have to work through those violations and get to a point where we sincerely are ready to forgive ourselves and to forgive the other person. And so I want victims of all kinds to understand that your liberation and transcendence is based upon, is rooted in you and you giving yourself permission to be set free. Nobody holds any key of oppression over you. The moment that you desire to be free, just as in Larry, he made a conscious decision to liberate himself. He made a conscious decision to forgive those people. And in so, he was able to move completely forward into his purpose and into his power. And I want Sister Reid to know the same thing. That any moment you decide you are ready, this is over, sister. This is over. And if you need to speak that thing, if that's a part of your healing journey, let me tell you something that I thought was so powerful. I've mentioned this a few times on my platform. Beyonce made a whole album called Lemonade based upon the trials and tribulations and the work she had to do in herself to forgive her husband of his affairs, of his extramarital behavior. When that whole album and project dropped and was done, I remember listening to an interview that Jay-Z did where he spoke about his infidelity and how he almost lost his family, his wife, due to his male bullshit. And something that he said was very mature and elevated and egoless, because I think the DJ asked him, what did you think about your wife putting y'all shit on Front Street? What did you think about that? That she was going to do this project. Everybody was going to know that you were a big ass male whore, that you were going to get dragged because who cheats on fucking Beyonce? You're the luckiest man in the world. And here it is. You're cheating on one of the world's greatest pop stars and entertainers and moguls. And Jay-Z said that as a man who, first of all, is taking full responsibility for his behavior and who also loves his wife, that he chose to accept whatever method of healing his wife was to take, because that was the only possible way that he was going to be able to maintain a relationship to his wife. And that meant more to him than his ego. That I want my wife. To hell with my business being put on Front Street. To hell with my public image. I want my fucking wife. And so he supported her in whatever form of healing she needed to heal. And if that meant talking about what he did to her for years, if that meant putting it in a play, if that meant writing about it, in a song, if that meant putting it in a damn book, that he had to separate himself and let her do her and get out of the goddamn way. Because as the person who was responsible for that fracture, the only way that he could make things better would have been to let her commit in whatever way she needed to move forward. And if you are somebody who has to say sorry to someone, I want people to understand that sorry is not a result of shame. A lot of times we don't like to say sorry because we feel condemned or shame. Sorry is actually the result of love. It's an expression of love, not condemnation. Condemnation is when you can't acknowledge it. Condemnation is when you refuse to acknowledge it. Condemnation is when you choose to deny. Acknowledgement is the product of maturity, spiritual maturity, emotional maturity, and it's the power of love. If you love somebody, you need to confess, not for just their sake, but for your own soul's sake as well. And neither should we rely on someone's sorry and acknowledgement to move forward, because freedom was never theirs to give to us. Never there to give to us. I have had to forgive a lot of people who did not ask for it for the sake of my soul salvation. Because holding in bitterness and resentfulness is a poison designated for my enemy that only I drink of. So resentfulness and unforgiveness doesn't hurt anybody but the person doing the unforgiveness. Your abuser doesn't experience your resentment. Your abuser does not experience your unforgiveness. You do. You do. We are the only ones suffering when we choose to hold on. But it is a journey to let go. And that's why we need proper community and support. Like any serious surgery, like any heart surgery. Okay, you can't walk up out of the hospital by yourself after heart surgery. And ego deaths and violations of all kinds and profound sadnesses of all kinds injure our souls in a way that require deep spiritual surgery and mental surgery. We need community when we have fallen that deep into our pain. And the fuckery of silence is that when we are silent about our pain, because even if you don't want to put the person on blast, that's fine. But you need to be vocal at least about what happened to you, even if you want to spare the person who did it. Because your choice to prosecute your betrayer is your choice. What's more important is your healing. So even if you want to refrain from giving a name and putting a name on the violation, you need to bring yourself to confession of the violation. Because when you don't, you refuse community. When you don't speak it, community cannot yield to you and support you and what you refuse to acknowledge, what you refuse to say and to admit. And this is something that you cannot do alone. You can't. So I encourage people to at least say it to your support system. And if you don't have one, find one, even if it means a clinical therapist. Even if you can't trust nobody in your friendship group, even if you can't trust nobody in your family, there are professionals in place to help you to work through these things and to support you in your wholeness. Let's continue to watch.
I call it the band-aid of religion. It's like, God will fix it. It's going to be all right. I'm going to pray it out. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're still that person, and it's something you got to live with every day. Every day it affects me, what I went through in my life.
0 to 5 is much like this room. It's black, it's cold, and it is vacant. I do not remember 0 to 5 except for a few smells. And one of the main smells is probably the smell of a man's crotch. Then I also remember the smell of my grandfather's hat. I will always take his hat after work. My mom left me at her mom's house with my grandma and grandpa. And whenever he came home from work, you know, I would jump up in his lap. People use molestation. I say that I was molested. But I don't know if all molestation is criminal. I think some molestation just happens as a result of people being curious. 2-room houses and there's 20 of us. Some things just begin to happen.
Wow. Now, what Larry just said was literally, that's going to go over so many people's heads. That is so far ahead of its time. That statement right there literally breaks the bow. Larry said that he does not believe that all molestation is criminal, but is the result of curiosity, or I would say the result of human complexity. That's absolutely true. That while there can be, and oftentimes is, injury to the one molested and violated, that the context of the person doing the violation may be non-nefarious. And remember when I told you in the beginning to keep in mind, small town, family piled up on top of each other, proximity oftentimes lead to sexual violation. Human beings get very strange in their loneliness. And when humans are deprived, it can warp human senses. It can warp and deprive one's ability to make sound judgment and to make informed decisions. Deprivation of joy, deprivation of community, deprivation of peace can almost put consciousness and the soul into a drunken state where a person has now gone from being behind the wheel of their feelings and now being enslaved or controlled and become the deprivation itself. When you get into this level of deprivation, there are lots of things that happen in small towns and in isolated living. This is where you find that people will have sexual and they will display sexual behavior toward their pets, toward animals, something outside of ourselves becomes us when human beings are deeply deprived. This is why, and this is why I understand the importance of all the mystics who have come forth, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Jesus, whoever, who speaks so much about community, the need for proper community, the need for human interaction and these virtues, the need for healthy socialization. Because when humans are left unto themselves, oftentimes our souls become distorted, deformed, and transformed. And it ain't for the better. But it's not always also out of ill intention. You ever heard the saying that hurt people hurt people? Well, that's another way of saying a person can only give you according to their condition, whatever condition they are in at the point in time of y'all's encounter in life. Some of y'all may have found and met people that you fell in love with who were pretty jacked up at the time that y'all fell in love. This is why people say things like right person, wrong time. Because we can only give people and only present what our condition is. This is why performative Christianity doesn't work. This is why Jesus spoke about legalism. Because this isn't about modifying surface behavior. This is about getting to the minutia of our fundamentals as human beings. Because you can be an upright, walking, talking, well-dressed person who goes to church like you should and carry your Bible, and in the words of what's the name of the bishop? I got him in my head. Gosh, what's the name of the bishop, y'all? Not Bishop Bernard Jordan. What's the name of the bishop? My God. He interviewed Carlton Pearson. Also, I don't even want to name that person. What's the name of the bishop, y'all? I've spoken about him on my channel. What's the name of the bishop? He also assisted Larry in the church where there was racist. Bloomer, that's right. George Bloomer. Thank you, Yvette. Yes. Bishop, I'm still saying Bishop Bernard Jordan. Bishop George Bloomer spoke about being well-dressed, charismatic, in church, doing his job technically, while having his needle and his drug of choice literally in his Bible. Getting high within the sanctuary and then getting up in the pulpit and preaching high out of his damn mind. And that's what Christ rejected. That we have to have genuine soul transformation. Because moderating behavior does not change the state of consciousness itself. It just means that you're willing to act better while feeling God awful. It just means that you're willing to perform better while being sick and lonely and injured within. This is why Christ was always calling out the Pharisees. Y'all look the part, you sound the part, but based upon the way you treat others and the way you treat the lesser man, your haughtiness and your arrogance and your elitism, this ain't what this is about. Because genuine love and compassion would have you down there with the people, not sitting above them. Not sitting above them. And so, I kind of forgot where the hell I was going, y'all. I had to latch on to something here. Hold on, let me go. What was I looking at? Larry's. Oh, so to the point that, look, I know y'all are taught it's true. The simplest things in life are true. All humans need love, even those who don't know it. Even those who refuse to ask for it need love. Need love. Not all the money in the world, not all the fame and fortune in the damn world, not fancy clothes. All those things are nice, beautiful, wonderful. You're blessed if you have them. Hoorah. What you need for true solidarity in self and in life and in relationships is tangible, available love. And loneliness separates us from that. A lack of community separates us from that. A lack of being seen separates us from those things. Celestri says, many people go to church for a re-up, going for self-centered reasons, the ego. Ultimately, church is about community, but that isn't the mindset that people have when they attend. That was the initial purpose of church, was to galvanize like-minded people, and it became a fashion stunt. It became a place where people fostered this idea that they were better than the rest of the world and that they were on the right track, and it became a focus of who's right and who's wrong, and all this egotism drove itself into religion, and now religion is a shell of itself. It's not the spiritual zone that it can be. It's not the spiritual capital that it was designed to be. And you can still find that in pockets in churches. But for the most part, it is a zone that fosters religious narcissism, religious egotism. It's just the ego wearing the outfit of the church. And that's going to come up in this documentary. Let's get back to this.
Are all sexual. They're all sexual. There was some violation of put your face in the grass. And whenever he came home from work, I would jump up in his lap. People use molestation. I say that I was molested. But I don't know if all molestation is criminal. I think some molestation just happens as a result of people being curious. 2-room houses, and there's 20 of us. Some things just begin to happen. And those are my earliest thoughts. My earliest thoughts are all sexual. They're all sexual. There was some violation of put your face in the grass. Don't look up. Lick my butt. Literally. I think I was putting out a signal that I need love, I need affirmation, I need attention, and then broken people saw that signal and done what they thought they needed to do to the request that I was making. And they just chose improperly. My grandfather was probably the first person that I felt like had a very strong love and appreciation for me. And that I remember. I remember that.
It's hard to say. Well, even
I want to say this, that it's interesting how also Larry's grandfather really was his first experience of the divine masculine. Protective, observant, critical, assuring, and a provider of that safety. Always in me and Larry's interview that we did about season 1 of Reading Things My Way, which season 2 will be debuting at the end of this month on the 29th, I believe. And we will be reviewing season 2. But in our interview, I spoke to him about his daughter, because Larry is an empath and his daughter is an empath. And all empathic people, whether male or female, have a lot of feminine energy, a lot of loving, empathetic capacity. Larry, as an empathic male, required the divine masculine because his own divine femininity is what he was operating in the majority of. That's why they thought he was gay. That's why they thought he was same gender loving. That's why they thought he was soft and all these things. What they really were observing were attributes of the divine feminine. And I told you guys that regardless of whether you're male or female, everyone has their own proximity and capacity and ratio of masculine and feminine energies. It doesn't come down to genitalia. It doesn't come down to, well, you a man, so you should have more masculinity. Are you a woman, you should have more femininity. It comes down to the nature of the soul. And some men and women have more of one energy than the other operating in them at a given time. And so Larry's grandfather was that balance, and that revealed itself in many instances. That's what we're about to hear.
You know, I can't even remember them having a relationship.
Larry was so young. Mr. Doug died early, so he knew him, but he died early in his life.
Grandpa was crazy about him. And when I say crazy, I mean crazy about him. And I'm going to tell you something that Larry did that almost cost KB her life. Okay? So we were all walking down the hall. And for whatever reason, the thought popped up in Larry's mind. I'm going to throw myself in the wall, pretend that Karen did it, and watch what Grandpa does. And so this is literally the little demon Larry now. This is what he did. He threw himself into the wall, started screaming like somebody was peeling his skin off. And Grandpa comes down the hall, breathing all kinds of threats.
I remember one time we were doing what we were doing in a particular place, and it's like he knew it was going on, walked in there, didn't ask no questions to the person that was doing it, and said, "Come on, Larry," and took me back to the house.
And then he realized, wait a minute, there's somebody that is willing to protect me. And that was Grandpa, hands down.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
I have questions. There's something going on with Mama Reid. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why it is, but there is something going on with Mother Reid. I get the sense that she's guarded. She has a lot of masculine energy. I don't know if because she has more masculine energy that it makes her emotionally unavailable, because Mama Reid is very out of touch. I'm almost this close, and I have a great deal of respect for Mama Reid, because despite all, baby, she gave birth to some survivors. That may be a testament of her own survival. But I don't know whether it's it's something that's riding the lines of a narcissism. Because Larry, throughout this documentary, seemed to have had more issues really out of his mother than his father. And Mama just seemed to, I mean, to the point that Larry even said in the documentary that he believed his parents love him, but that they don't like him. And most of the arguments and contentions and judgments seem to have came from Mama Reid. She was the one who thought he was gay, didn't want him to be gay. She was the one who seemed to be the most vocal and outwardly frustrated about his religious beliefs and practices and denominations. She was the one, yes, Taya, very detached. I mean, so detached that the grandfather had more of a maternal like energy than she did. Grandpa Doug knew spiritually that Larry was in trouble. And that's largely due to the fact that Grandpa Doug actually gave his heart to Larry. And with Larry being an empath, Larry was able to absorb all of his grandfather's love, even as a young person. That Larry was able to perceive and receive all of that. That's the nature of an empath. You a big ass eternal sponge of both light and darkness. And if you have somebody in your life vibrating at a level of light that's very profound, you're going to absorb all that as is. And that's why his grandfather just sticks out in his experience, while his mom is completely removed from the fact that they even had a relationship at all. I mean, she's completely removed. And so I'm going to go on record and say that I believe that Mama Reid, she gave her body to her children, in terms of she had them, she provided for them, but Mama never gave her heart to her children. And that may explain why so many things happened under her watch and why she did not catch so many of the cues. And because Daddy and Papa also had his own egotisms, if I'm willing to bet my money on it, it seemed as though it would have been easier for Larry to get emotional availability from his father than his mother. And I would be curious to know, what is Mama Reid's story? Because people don't happen in a vacuum. And I know she is an older woman from a rural part of the South, and she's of a certain generation like my grandmother was. And I know that a lot of those women and men, they grew up so rough, and they started so young in adulthood. They were cooking and washing clothes and taking care of the land and doing all these things from 5 and 6 years old. My grandmother knew how to cook a 4-course meal. At 6, she never had a childhood. And I think a lot of people of that generation, they weren't given a childhood because there's a lack of resources, and you had to make the kids a part of the resources. You had to make the kids a part of what you had. And so a lot of those people, they grew up hard. You had to be detached because so much of life was about surviving life, not necessarily living life. And ironically, you know, my grandmother is very giving, very loving, but my aunts have always complained about my grandmother not being very affectionate, that she's not a very huggy, kissy, facey type of woman. And it was largely because she wasn't raised in that type of environment. She also wasn't a woman that said, I love you. Love was more so shown by raising you, protecting you, once again, providing for you. But those verbal affirmations wasn't there. And ironically, throughout this documentary, Larry spoke about a lot of disapproval that came from his parents, particularly his mother. And I feel bad for Mama Reid because she's missing out on so much of the emotional fruit of the relationships to her children. And I'm willing to believe that even her controllingness is out of love, you know, a warped sense of, I want you to practice the right faith and do the right thing so you can get into heaven. I love you. I want you to make it. That there is a love behind even the disapproval. But mom she's here with it. She's not here. And that's why Larry can feel, and he knows that, and even Shamako followed suit later on in the documentary and said Larry seemed to him to have been tolerated rather than truly embraced and accepted. And empaths don't love anyone harder than their parents. I was a mama's boy. I was a daddy's boy. Your parents are your first experience of God. And depending on what type of parents you have or had, can shape the way that you perceive God. Your family also is the first society that you're given, depending on what type of goddamn family you got, will very much so shape the way you experience the society outside of your interpersonal community and family. So when people beating on you, cussing you out, using you, dogging you out, being difficult in friendship or relationship, has a lot to do with where they came from. None of us are happening within a vacuum. We come out of circumstances. We come out of situations. And sometimes we become a product of those circumstances. Now, luckily for Larry, he's a mystic. And because he's a mystic, he has such a strong sense of self that even as harsh and as crazy and bizarre and as complex as a lot of his life experience was growing up, he retained such a strong ego that he was able to triumph beyond all of those speed bumps, all of those controlling factors. That's the only reason why I was able to hold on to my sense of self, because I had a very strong sense of self. And then regardless of the church saying you can't be gay, or the black community saying you can't be connected to your femininity, and you can't be a black man, and you can't do this, and you can't, despite all of that, and despite as painful as it was, my sense of self was stronger than my need to please other people. And that was the only thing that saved me from conformity. It's because of that strong sense of self. Let me read some of these comments. We've been here for 2 hours, and we only watched 20 minutes of the damn documentary. Please know that your community is here and you are genuinely well thought of and cared for. Absolutely, Phyllis. Phyllis is the world. Kind, soul, empathic, loving, so sensitive to the point that it burdens her sometimes. But loved and a beautiful person. So your child is molested. You've never been able to control your child. He's been in his own person. So shouldn't you wonder why your child is managed with no reason for it? You never think to see it. It's so crazy how so many people choose to never be introspective. They never ask themselves the questions why, and they never ask themselves what have they contributed to the way things look. You would think that if you consistently are experiencing a person being a certain way to you, that at some point you would ask, is it something that you're giving? Is it something that you're doing? But when you have a lot of egotism, almost narcissism, nope, it's that person and that person alone, not you. And that's why I was teetering whether Mama Reid might in fact be narcissistic. It just doesn't know it. A lot of narcissists don't know they're narcissists. It's just who they are. It's the personality type. They're not trying to be narcissistic. They just are. A lot of things can contribute to narcissism. It could be a very rough upbringing. It could be a lot of emotional neglect in the formative years of one's life that leads to the development of narcissism. That emotional neglect could be brought about by living a life where it's more focused on survival and not having the opportunity to really be loved and properly nurtured and heard and seen and affirmed. That these circumstances culminate in unique ways and become circumstances that human beings find themselves in. And people get, and all narcissism really is survival mode. Narcissism is a result of some type of a very deep and profound neglect. So deep and profound that the self becomes a capital SELF. And that's out of surviving. Because narcissists experience things in their formative years that made them not trust the world, not trust people, and therefore everything has to come down to them, and therefore everything has to be about them. Everything has to center around them. And most narcissists, once again, don't know that they're narcissists. They're not attempting to. They're not being intentional. Not being intentional. It's just the way they are. And less than 1% of narcissists get treatment. for their narcissism. And most people around the narcissist end up just coping and finding ways to tolerate and deal with the stubbornness from mama or daddy, whoever the narcissist is, the narcissistic parent. And this can create a very complex relationship from parent to child. Sometimes the child can become narcissistic as a result of narcissistic parent or parents. It's a vicious cycle. Okay? So I feel like one of the things that what Larry Reid's saving grace was being a mystic and having a very strong sense of self. That is something that most mystics have. It's a strong sense of self. This is what makes us innovative. This is what makes us stand out above the rest. When you apply pressure to a mystic, it only makes them become more of what they are. Like, as you would hear in the documentary, they would say everything that they told Larry not to do, he did it. If you told him don't do this, he did it. That's exactly how I was. Exactly how I was. Mystics have a problem with authority, especially unnecessary authority. Mystics can yield, but it has to be wise authority. Mystics not going to let you control them just for the hell of controlling them. And mystics know when your ego is behind your authority, rather versus when it's your love and your wisdom that's behind it. I rebelled against my mother too, against my parents. And I knew when the control was about them, and I was never going to let them control me for their sake. I don't know how I knew this, but that's the way discernment works. You can't explain how you're able to differentiate one state of consciousness from another state of consciousnness, one source of thought from another source of thought. It's just intuitive. You just know it. It's a vibration, it's a frequency. You know? And it's wild. I'm going to say this before I wrap up, because I could do this all night, and there's going to be a part 2 to the documentary airing in January, and we'll come back and give an epic conclusion. What I took away from this hour of this documentary was, I'm going to tell you immediately what happened. I stayed up all night after I watched this. It was that heavy. It was thick. It was reminiscent. It was relatable. And I feel like it was all about stories. It was all about families. And I think this is why why it compelled so many people and why it resonated with so many people. But when I woke up the next morning after watching this documentary, you know, as a Scorpio and as a mystic myself, I'm already like Larry. I'm already naturally honest. I like to deal with things head on. I don't like to pussyfoot around anything. But after watching this documentary and watching Larry and his sisters and his relatives be so honest, this documentary was so, and I told Larry this last night, this documentary was so brutally authentic and honest that it was brutal to the point of inspirational. To actually see Black and brown people come to a setting knowing that what they are about to share is going to go out to thousands of people. To see people, Black people from conservative spaces, be so sharing about things that are so deeply taboo, and to have opinions about each other that can lead to contention and yet be willing to still yet be transparent made me absolutely commit the rest of my life from last night to telling everybody, including myself, the loving God, honest truth for the rest of my life. I don't ever want to live in shame and in secrecy. Another day of my life in no fucking capacity. I told myself after last night that I would let my no's be no's and my yeses be yeses, and that when people ask me what's wrong, that I will be honest. That if I have issues with people, that I will take up those issues with people. That I will absolutely not protect other people's egos. Because that's exactly what has gotten us in the damn trouble that we're in as a community, as a family, as a people. I was inspired. I was inspired by the transparency. I feel like seeing this is so forward moving and innovative for Black America. Because what the Reid family did was put on display the significance of honesty. Larry's own parents and so many other people said that they hadn't even known some of these things until now. And that's how we accidentally leave people behind, because we don't even know that they're back there to begin with. It's time for Black America to speak, and to speak it all. It's time not to just call pale supremacy to the forefront and not to tell white people the honest truth about their God-given history, but it's time for us to tell ourselves the truth about our own damn history as well. It's time for us to talk to each other about the brutal, ashy-ass truth about our own histories with each other, the things that have happened in our own lineages, within our own households. It's time to tell our parents the truth. It's time for aunts and uncles to tell each other the truth. It's time for cousins and siblings to tell each other the truth. It's time for church members to tell themselves the truth about each other. The truth. It is our only motherfucking way to freedom. It's through the power of truth that compels thee. What's going on, Catherine? There are so many things that we need to say to each other that we're not. This is the time now to capitalize. And I'm absolutely using the Reid family and their willingness and emboldenedness and courage to come forward as a motivation to live in the whole entire truth from this day forward. You know, this is one of the attributes about my friendship to Larry that was really notable to me, was that we both are very vocal, opinionated, ballsy people. And we've been able to agree in ways that are very significant, and we were able to disagree in ways that were significant, and yet maintain a friendship. And that's the only type of ship of any kind I want to be in, whether it's romantic, whether it's family, whether it's friend. Is I want us to understand that honesty and authenticity is an act of love, not a point of contention. So guess what? When I go to Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow, there's some people who've been calling my phone for months who I have yet to answer. There's some relatives who've been running me down, who I don't fuck with. And I ain't necessarily told them why yet. So they trying to figure out what's up. And thanks to Larry, somebody gonna get their feelings hurt tomorrow because I done pledged to myself that from now on, I'm speaking the whole truth. And so when some people come up to me tomorrow and say, where the hell you been? I've been calling your phone. You think you too? Soon as they open the door, soon as they ask me, baby, why I ain't answered the phone, why I ain't been around, why I been MIAA, tomorrow they gonna get the truth. And I don't give a damn if they drop dead from it. Because when you ask, you better be prepared to damn receive. Because after watching that damn documentary, I am literally inspired to be completely honest with myself and honest with every motherfucker around me. And that alone, truth alone, is a natural filter. If you want to know who is ordained for you in life, if you want to know who God sent to you, if you want to know which of your relationships in life are from God and or from the enemy, start telling the damn truth. Whoever left standing, that's who's ordained to you. That's your family. That's your community. Whoever is left standing after the goddamn ashes dissipate, that's who God got for you. Let truth be your filter to separate the wheat from the chaff, baby. What's going on, Soap and Wash? Because, baby, I'm ready for the honesty of tomorrow, baby. I'm ready to throw some up bowls too, baby. I'm ready to have Thanksgiving plate in one hand, baby, and to be swinging on the other, baby. I'm ready to tear some hands up, baby. But I'm ready. The loving truth. Especially if you're telling the truth to somebody you love. The loving truth. Tell them the truth. But lovingly. What's going on, Monica? Hey, boo. Hey, Oz. Tell them the truth. Because truth without love is injury. Truth without love is just careless and brutal. But tell the God honest, loving truth. And let people deal with it how they may. Because you don't need them to accept it, even though it would be nice. And you don't need them to like it, even though that would be preferred. But the only way to get to any true resolve and betterment in a relationship of any kind is through truth. It has to be established on the grounds of truth. It has to be. It has to be. You ain't building nothing real if the foundation of your interactions and relationships is not in truth, for better and or for worse. You are setting yourself up. Y'all are setting each other up for the failure of it all. If you're starting from any other basis than an honest and authentic one. If you have not seen Misfit to Mystic Part 1, I dare you to watch that documentary. There is no way that you're not going to take something away from that hour. There is no way that there's not going to be a spiritual stirring in you. From Misfit to Mystic, Part 1. I'm going to leave that here. We'll finish up in January. Win the show. Win the show. When Part 2 concludes, okay? I'm going to try to have Larry on as well, babe, because I got questions, babe. I got things. And matter of fact, while I'm here, let me go ahead and run the trailer for season 2 of Reading Things My Way, because I am excited. This documentary was well done. It was everything and then some. And I told Larry last night, I said, nigga, nigga. I said, babe, Part 2 better be an upper, baby, because Part 1 is a total downer, honey. Okay, you made us deal with ourselves and some things in Part 1, honey. So
Reading Things My
part damn 2 better be inspirational, baby. It better make me it better soften my nipples, baby. It better make me feel like the world is safe, baby, and family is everything. Cause Part 1 took me right on out. But season Part 2, we'll be here to review it. I'm gonna try to get Larry in the building. Let's watch the trailer for season 2 of Reading Things My Way, because baby, the Reids is showing the hell out. Okay, let's go ahead and run that. What we're doing.
My Way season 2 is underway. But in season 2, I got a feeling it's gonna be a whole mess. And I want to go ahead and apologize right now for some of the things that is going to be said and some of the things that is going to be done. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
What do I feel about Thanksgiving dinner? I was super nervous about coming to Thanksgiving dinner because
what does that have to do with the fact that she left?
What happened before I left? What happened before I left?
Don't make no difference. You there.
you threatened her, Reid? No, they had hot
Approach me before I left.
Right. Well, Shamako is the same Shamako that he was in the first season. Ain't no different.
I'm taking your advice, and I'm stepping the hell out.
If Mako is impatient, he's going to speak a certain kind of way.
He's been his typical self, being all impatient, and he just sent me over the edge.
Really? See, that stuff, when I'm talking, you make those kinds of faces. Shut up with it.
Woo! Babe!
Girl, let me tell you, these motherfuckers was crazy. We went through the Reid family and our little group season 1. I don't know if they ready. Because every and anything that they have not discussed and went through, it's coming out of this show.
By the God, baby. It's gonna be too much, baby. I don't know why these people want to put all their business out here like this, but I'm here for it, baby. What's going on, Sector TV? What's going on, my nigga? Man, y'all got to check out. Okay, first of all, don't be coming up in here not speaking to me, talking about what's up, chat. It's what's up, CTV, and then what's up, chat. Okay. So, you guys, November the 28th, read things in my way, baby. These folk gonna be throwing turkeys and turkey basters and chairs and stuff. They gonna be throwing all this IKEA furniture all over the damn place and stuff, tearing up all the lavish cheap shit, baby. Okay, so we're gonna be here for that. And if you guys once again have not seen part 1 of From Misfit to Mystic, check it out. It unveils a total other layer of Dr. Larry Reid and his survival story and his family dynamic, and it's just everything all in one. Okay, I want you guys to have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday and a goddamn happy Turkey Day and everything. Right. Baby, Kendall had the vein, baby, the good psycho vein that come up all up and through here and all up and through here, baby. I can't wait, baby. I want to see that IKEA furniture go up in the earth, baby. It's going to be everything. So you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm going to get out of here. I do have a birthday review to give to you guys this week, so I will be back probably over the weekend and things. Also, I'm going to let you guys know how Thanksgiving goes, girl. Since I'm going to be bringing a whole nother layer of honesty to the family table tomorrow. So I'll let you guys know if I'm in jail by tomorrow, baby, okay? If all y'all see me put up on a community wall tomorrow is a cash app, that means that a bitch is in jail, baby, okay? So make sure you send me some coin so I can bail myself out, baby, when keeping it real goes all the way motherfucking wrong, okay? I love you guys, and I will see you guys later. Peace.